Hansi Flick's Barcelona is already promising to be an extremely interesting watch for the upcoming season. What we saw in the 2-2 draw with Milan is nowhere near his first choice 11, but a lot of the tactical principles are already visible. Some problems in the midfield were also apparent, but we'll examine how Flick used a two-pronged approach to overcome them. Flick, as always, implemented his famed 4-2-3-1 formation. Initially, this featured a double pivot while both fullbacks remained wide, and early in the encounter they were not hyper-aggressive. The double pivot is going to be essential to Flick's patterns of play, as everything higher up the pitch emanates from these two positions. Knowing this, Milan did an excellent job of ensuring the pivots couldn't be accessed at all. If they sat off of them, Jovic would sit deeper on the pivots. But if Milan were pressing more aggressively, the first priority was to stop the pivots from having the space to turn on the ball by applying pressure with the right wing coming narrower so that their pivots could still remain deeper. It will need to be a different story once their first choice pivots are available, but what it meant in this match is that the pivots repeatedly lost the ball, leading to sloppy passes and counter-attacking opportunities. So how would Flick look to solve this? Well, there were a couple of different ways of doing it, with the first being to take advantage of a player who has been world-class in a deeper role in the past. Gundogan and Casado began to rotate as the match progressed, and just these simple movements between the players could lead Milan's midfield to hesitate, meaning they could find pockets of room higher up the pitch. But the main advantage, of course, is that Gundogan has both the experience in this position, as well as the technical ability to operate in these zones, not just to rotate possession, but also to find the wingers who were looking to make moves behind the defense. The problem is they would now be missing Gundogan's creative ability here, plus his tendency to be quite effective at arriving in the box late. Barcelona were being stifled, and Flick was on the lookout for solutions. The two key players were on either side of the pitch, Lewandowski and Ter Stegen, who both looked to affect AC Milan's defensive structure. Ter Stegen became increasingly involved on the ball, meaning that now Jovic would be drawn away from the pivot if Ter Stegen was able to bait him in. The centre-back moving wider also helped matters, because now the winger, who was previously able to fairly easily shield a pivot, could also be drawn out to prevent the Barcelona centre-back from having acres of space to progress through. All of this meant Barca had manoeuvred a little more space to find the midfield and looked to create danger. All of this was made even more impactful because Lewandowski was not a static forward. So with Milan's solid midfield structure now disbanded, he was dropping in to increase the overload even more and improve their link-up play. The problem was, his link-up play in this match was not particularly great, especially when the centre-back decided to follow him deep. But the game, of course, is not just played down the centre of the pitch. The wide areas through the fullbacks were just as important. Remember how I said the fullbacks were wide but wouldn't advance too high up the pitch? Well, that was just mainly in the early exchanges, and with the clock ticking, the fullbacks began to bomb forward, which presented different opportunities. Down the right-hand side, it presented the opportunity for Victor to move into the midfield. This would not only pin the fullback in a much narrower position, but it also provided the opportunity to have two runners making a move in behind. Victor could be the runner if the left-back was caught out wide, but alternatively, if the fullback decided to track Victor, this presented the opportunity for the right-back to make the run into a dangerous area and actually get into some of the most threatening positions. Rafinha, on the other hand, when he had his fullback overlapping him, rather than moving inside like we saw him do as an attacking midfielder in the second half, he tended to receive the ball in the left-back zone and be one of the progressors as he was looking to deliver passes into men higher up the pitch. But it's not ideal to have a chief attacking threat this deep, so Flick will have to find a more efficient way to progress the side up the pitch. So, just a short video on Flick's side in possession. But it's hard to judge a defensive organization in particular in pre-season. So what do you guys make of Flick's Barca so far, and how will they do early on? And speaking of new managers, check out these breakdowns on Slot's Liverpool.